A horrifying case shocked Canada when a wealthy billionaire was brutally murdered. His body was not only dismembered into 108 pieces, but initial police investigations also revealed several bullet wounds on the victim's body. The first clues collected from the scene indicated that this was not an ordinary murder. Surveillance cameras at the victim's mansion captured the last images before the crime occurred, and surprisingly, at that time, only 2 close family members were with him. So, who in this billionaire's family is the killer? And what motive would make them kill their own relative? Let's dive deep into the details to uncover the truth behind this thrilling case. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss any other exciting videos. The story began in early May when Vancouver police received an emergency call from Yuan Gang's personal secretary, a successful Chinese businessman. According to the secretary's testimony, Yuan Gang had been missing for 48 hours, despite her efforts to search everywhere and make multiple calls, but received no response. This was highly unusual because Yuan Gang was a very busy person and had never disappeared without a trace like this. After receiving the information about Yuan Gang's disappearance, a large-scale investigation was immediately launched. Thanks to the clues collected, the police quickly located him. What surprised the entire investigation team was that Yuan Gang was dead, and the scene they discovered his body in the mansion was truly horrifying. The man's body was not intact, but was dismembered into 108 different pieces, and they were carefully arranged in 12 large cardboard boxes. The body parts were scattered all over the mansion. Even more chilling was that when conducting the autopsy, the forensic doctor discovered that the victim had not only been mutilated, but had also been shot multiple times in vital areas before his death. These bullet wounds proved that he had suffered a brutal attack before dying. Upon further analysis, investigators found that Yuan Gang was a physically strong man. He was 180 centimeters tall and weighs about 80 kilograms, so the police believed that someone like him would not be easily subdued. This information led the police to suspect that the killer was not just an opportunist, but rather a group of people who had thoroughly planned this crime. They immediately reviewed data from security cameras around the mansion, and the results from the videos revealed a crucial detail of the case. On May 2, 2015, only 2 people appeared and came in and out of the villa. They were Li Xiaomei, the victim's cousin, and Zhao Li, her husband. This detail immediately drew the police's suspicion toward these 2 people because, usually, such a brutal murder is rarely committed by a stranger without leaving any trace. Cases involving family members or people familiar with the victim often have more complicated motives, and importantly, the killer can easily access the victim without raising suspicion. However, one noteworthy detail is that although the mansion was legally owned by Yuan Gang, the people actually living there were Li Xiaomei and Zhao Li. From then on, the police began to investigate more deeply into the relationship between Yuan Gang and the couple to uncover any conflicts that could have led to the murder. According to the police, in 2010, Yuan Gang had invited his cousin Li Xiaomei and her family to move from Montreal to Vancouver to settle down. This invitation was not only out of familial closeness, but also involved some personal calculations. On the one hand, Yuan Gang wanted someone to help him handle the small tasks in life. On the other hand, at that time, Li Xiaomei and Zhao Li were facing financial difficulties, and Yuan Gang wanted to help them stabilize their lives. However, what likely intrigued Yuan Gang the most wasn't helping his cousin's family, but rather Zhao Yiming, their daughter. When Yuan Gang met Zhao Yiming for the first time, he was immediately attracted to her. This young girl had a beautiful appearance, a sexy figure, was intelligent, and full of life, completely different from the women who had previously passed through his life. With just one glance, Yuan Gang knew she was the type of woman he desired. Officially, Zhao Yiming's mother, Li Xiaomei, was Yuan Gang's cousin. However, in reality, Xiaomei was just an adopted daughter of the Li family, meaning there was no blood relation between Yuan Gang and Zhao Yiming. This meant that, theoretically, Zhao Yiming was not Yuan Gang's biological niece. However, Despite the lack of a blood relationship, their connection was still considered taboo. This made it so that even though Yuan Gang longed for his niece, he still had to restrain himself. Instead, he quietly used money and influence to manipulate Zhao Yiming. As for Zhao Yiming, she was not an ordinary girl herself. Born into a wealthy family, she had lived a comfortable life in China. But when she arrived in Canada, her status dropped to the bottom, going from a rich young lady to the daughter of a struggling working-class family. This disparity made her dissatisfied, and in her mind, Zhao Yiming always yearned to reclaim the luxurious life she once had. She often pretended to be a wealthy young lady to attend high society parties in Vancouver. When Yuan Gang noticed that Zhao Yiming was struggling, he couldn't ignore the opportunity. When she decided to join a television program called Ultra Rich Asian Girls, Yuan Gang immediately stepped in to support her. He bought her a series of luxurious items, from designer handbags, expensive jewelry, to elegant outfits. Not stopping there, to show off his own status, Yuan Gang even used his private island worth 10 million yuan, which he had purchased earlier, as a prop for Zhao Yiming to flaunt on the show. Under Yuan Gang's pampering, Zhao Yiming quickly transformed herself into a wealthy young lady. It was from that point that the boundary between Yuan Gang and Zhao Yiming began to blur. What started as special attention gradually developed into a relationship that surpassed normal limits. Recognizing this as a potential motive for murder, the police began investigating the relationship between Yuan Gang and Zhao Yiming more deeply. Investigators quickly placed Zhao Yiming on the suspect list, as it was highly likely that she had killed the billionaire to seize his wealth. However, upon further investigation, the police discovered something surprising. Although Zhao Yiming had the motive to harm Yuan Gang, it was not her but rather her father, Zhao Li, who was the true murderer of the case. This truth was only uncovered when Li Xiaomei, Zhao Li's wife, unexpectedly provided crucial information to the police. The police followed the clues and discovered that Zhao Li had meticulously planned to quietly eliminate Yuan Gang. After the crime was exposed by his wife, Zhao Li had no choice but to admit his guilt. When faced with the investigators, he finally confessed to all the crimes he had committed. Zhao Li confessed that when he arrived in Canada, he quickly realized that hunting could become a business opportunity. However, in order to hunt legally, one would need specialized hunting rifles, which required a valid gun ownership license. During a hunting trip with Yuan Gang, Zhao Li shared this idea and hoped that he would fund his project. His plan was quite clear. Yuan Gang would provide the capital, and Zhao Li would be responsible for executing the idea, developing the product, and bringing it to market. At first, Yuan Gang wasn't very interested in the project, but after reconsidering, he saw that it could be a feasible investment opportunity. Therefore, he decided to visit Zhao Li's mansion to discuss the details further. On the afternoon of May 3, 2015, Yuan Gang drove to his cousin's family villa to discuss an investment. That day, Li Xiaomei and Zhao Yiming were absent, and only Zhao Li was at home. Yuan Gang made a clear proposal, agreeing to invest and even willing to set up a company to develop the product. Not only that, but he also promised to pay Zhao Li a monthly salary of around 20,000 yuan. However, Zhao Li was not satisfied with this offer. He not only wanted a fixed salary, but also wanted to hold 1/3 of the company's shares as the inventor of the product. According to him, if the product succeeded, the profits should be shared according to the ownership of the shares, rather than just receiving a fixed monthly salary. However, Yuan Gang immediately refused. He argued that the invention was too simple, lacked high technical value, and could easily be copied and replaced. Furthermore, the market for this product was too narrow, and it was uncertain whether there would even be buyers, so he didn't want to share equity with Zhao Li. Yuan Gang's blunt refusal quickly created a tense atmosphere in the room. Zhao Li, who had been dissatisfied with him for some time, felt insulted by being disregarded. But then, Yuan Gang unexpectedly shifted the conversation to another matter, a proposal no one could have anticipated. He proposed that if Zhao Li agreed to marry his daughter to him, he would give him half of the company's shares. This shameless proposal left Zhao Li in disbelief. Already angry after Yuan Gang's blunt refusal, hearing such an immoral comment made Zhao Li's rage flare up immediately. Unable to control himself, Zhao Li pointed at Yuan Gang and shouted angrily, "You're an animal! How dare you have such filthy intentions toward my daughter?" Yuan Gang, who was used to being respected and admired, was enraged when insulted in this way. Unable to accept the offense, he immediately lunged at Zhao Li and threw a punch straight to his cousin's face. The two struggled fiercely in the large mansion, but Zhao Li's fury didn't subside. In the chaos, he grabbed the nearby hunting rifle, aimed it at Yuan Gang, and pulled the trigger. After that shot, Yuan Gang collapsed to the ground, blood pouring out and staining the room. But this seemed not enough to quell Zhao Li's anger. Instead, his frenzy only intensified. Zhao Li continued to pull the trigger, shooting into the victim's body until Yuan Gang could no longer resist. However, his rage still didn't subside. Zhao Li knew that even after killing Yuan Gang, he still had to erase all traces of the crime. With that determination, Zhao Li went downstairs to the shed to get the chainsaw. Without hesitation, he began the brutal task of destroying the victim's body. Throughout the entire process, Zhao Li seemed unfazed by the horror he was creating. After Yuan Gang's tragic death, Li Xiaomei, Zhao Li's wife, could no longer stay silent and decided to expose her husband's crime. According to Li Xiaomei's testimony, on May 2, 2015, when she returned home, the first scene she saw was Zhao Li standing in the living room, holding some kind of tool in one hand, while the other hand was dragging parts of Yuan Gang's body. Zhao Li's handling of the body only increased the macabre nature of the case. Li Xiaomei testified that after killing Yuan Gang, Zhao Li showed no signs of regret or panic. In fact, he seemed to carry out everything with a sense of purpose, as if the act was part of a premeditated plan. For example, he began cutting the body into small pieces, then carefully arranged them into cardboard boxes to hide the evidence. During the time Zhao Li was cleaning up the scene, she feared that her husband would be arrested and prosecuted by the police. This fear was not only about losing her husband, but also about her and Zhao Yiming having to face a lonely life with no support. On one hand, she couldn't accept her husband's cruel actions, but on the other hand, she didn't want her family to be torn apart by the mistake Zhao Li had made. However, after careful thought, Li Xiaomei began to realize that her silence was only making things worse, especially when she realized that if Zhao Li continued down this criminal path, not only he but the entire family would face severe consequences. Eventually, Li Xiaomei decided to face the truth, even though she knew that her actions would destroy everything she and Zhao Li had built. Therefore, she voluntarily went to the police station and confessed the whole truth about the case. However, when arrested, Zhao Li testified that the incident occurred in a tense and unexpected situation. At that time, Yuan Gang was holding a hammer, and Zhao Li feared that he would be attacked. In that moment, he struck Yuan Gang's leg, causing him to lose balance and fall. Before the victim had a chance to react, Zhao Li immediately attacked Yuan Gang's head when he saw that he was trying to reach for a nearby gun. Zhao Li claimed that at that moment, he truly felt his life was in danger. Therefore, he immediately grabbed a nearby rifle, loaded it, and shot Yuan Gang's body. Zhao Li recalled that after firing the first shot, the panicked and fearful look in Yuan Gang's eyes still stared at him. In that instant, he thought the victim might rise and continue to threaten him, so he didn't hesitate to fire another shot. Both shots were fired nearly simultaneously, and Zhao Li still hadn't fully processed the situation, only knowing that he did it because he felt he wouldn't survive if he didn't act. This brutal murder case was complicated and dramatic from the start, making the trial process drag on for 5 years before a final verdict was reached. However, what was controversial was that the Canadian court considered Zhao Li's killing of Yuan Gang as a case of manslaughter, rather than premeditated murder. This verdict sparked public outcry, as no one could understand how a case involving a shooting death and dismemberment into 108 pieces could be deemed manslaughter. Could there be hidden details in this case that have never been brought to light? In October 2020, the Supreme Court of Canada finally delivered its verdict in the shocking case of Yuan Gang. Zhao Li was sentenced to 10 years and 6 months in prison for 2 main charges: manslaughter and desecration of a corpse. This sentence immediately sparked controversy, as many people believed that shooting someone to death and dismembering their body into 108 pieces could not simply be considered manslaughter. Shortly after the sentence was announced, some sources suddenly revealed a shocking detail that Yuan Gang and Zhao Yiming had actually never had any improper romantic relationship, contrary to previous rumors. According to those involved, the true cause of the murder was a financial dispute, as Zhao Li and Yuan Gang disagreed over how to divide the profits from their business ventures. If this is true, the entire case may have been steered in a completely different direction from the beginning. Meanwhile, Zhao Yiming, once considered the arrogant princess of Vancouver's high society, had completely disappeared. Immediately after the incident, she deleted all of her social media accounts, cut off contact with friends, and seemed to have severed ties with all her previous relationships. From a girl who once flaunted her wealth and power, she has now completely disappeared from North America, with no one knowing where she is or how she is living. In the end, the case was closed in legal records, but the mysteries behind it may never have answers. Thank you all for taking the time to follow this story, and I hope to see you in the next video.